Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Troy Clayton, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Captain Nick Tate. We warmly welcome the family of Private James Drew, whose story will be told shortly. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We also acknowledge the members of the RSL and Services Club Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland who are watching this ceremony broadcast across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private James Drew. James Drew was born in 1883 in Wellington, New South Wales, one of 9 children of George and Bridget Drew. He grew up in Wellington and after leaving school worked as a labourer in the district. In 1916, Drew volunteered for service in the Australian Imperial Force. He and his nephew Hardy Drew enlisted on the same day in Dubbo. James trained in Australia for several months before embarking on the transport ship Afric in November 1916. The ship arrived in England in January 1917 and Drew continued his training there for 3 months. In April 1917, Drew sailed to France, where he joined his unit, the 57th Australian Infantry Battalion. He was detached from his unit to work on the Core Farm during late spring and early summer, probably selected because of his experience as a rural labourer in Australia. When Drew rejoined his battalion in July, the focus of the British commanders had shifted to the north, to the town of Ypres in Belgium. In August, the 57th Battalion moved to the region around the northern French town of Hazelbrook, near the Belgian border. There, Drew and his comrades continued training. Knowing both sides would be likely to use gas shells in attacking and defending, the training placed particular emphasis on gas mask drills. In September 1917, the men of the 57th Battalion advanced to the front line in Belgium. They took part at the Battle of Polygon Wood late in the month, during which the Australian and British forces captured all of their objectives, but at a high cost in casualties. In late October, a day before the battalion was due to relieve another unit on the front line, Drew left his post and was found absent without leave. He was court-martialed for his desertion and found guilty. His sentence was suspended, however, because men were needed in the battalion. In December 1917, Drew came down with an ear infection and was sent to hospital in France for the winter months. He returned to his unit in February 1918. Shortly afterwards, the focus of the fighting shifted south once more, as German forces mounted a massive assault on the French city of Amiens. This city was a vital rail hub for the Allied forces and of great strategic importance. British and Commonwealth forces managed to stop the offensive just outside Amiens in the town of Villers-Bretonneux. In early April, German troops renewed their attack on the village, but were halted by the British and Australian troops. On the 5th of April 1918, Drew was wounded in the fighting, and later that day, he died of his wounds. He was 33 years old. Drew is buried in the Adelaide Cemetery outside Villers-Bretonneux, where over 900 Commonwealth soldiers of the First World War are buried or commemorated. Drew's nephew Hardy, with whom he had enlisted, joined the 17th Battalion and served on the Western Front. Hardy had been killed in September 1917 during the Third Battle of Ypres in Belgium. James Drew's family suffered another pain when the package containing his personal effects was lost. It was bound for Australia in July 1918 on the steamship Barunga, when the ship was torpedoed by a German submarine off the coast of Cornwall. British destroyers were soon on the scene and managed to rescue all on board, but the personal effects of Drew and about 5,000 Australian soldiers who had died on the Western Front were lost. Private James Drew is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, amongst almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. A photograph of his headstone is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private James Drew, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. We will remember them.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub of Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We'd like to thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial. Wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.